So, late in 2014, it was announced that Phil Brooks, better known as pro wrestler CM Punk, had signed a deal with the UFC for a couple of fights. So he's been training, he's been saying his prayers and taking his vitamins and doing whatever pro wrestlers do. And they still actually haven't announced when his first fight will be. Presumably it's going to be before the year's over. But we still really don't know who his opponent's going to be, or even if the opponent will actually be in-house. Because with CM Punk, you got to look at it like this. This is a guy who has not only never had a professional fight, he's never had an amateur fight. In fact, I'm not even really sure he's actually ever participated in like any sort of sanctioned, regulating sporting event of any kind. I mean, even with a dude like, Brock Lesnar, the dude's an NCAA champion. He's a real athlete. He's been doing this competitively at a high athletic position for years before he actually became an Ultimate Fighter. And really, you can say the same thing about any number of guys who made the transition from pro wrestling to actual fighting. Sakuraba, all those guys definitely had the background in real martial arts, real athletic wrestling, things like that, which CM Punk doesn't have, which makes it very interesting. And I'm sure the guy's training hard, and he's really going to put his best foot forward. But the reality is, if you put him in the octagon against even like the lower tier guys in the welterweight division or the middleweight division, he's going to get slain. There's just no way around it, because he doesn't have the skill set. He doesn't have the experience. He's got that cage rust. He's just not going to do well. So that puts the UFC in a very strange predicament. You want to put the guy in there with a recognizable name. You just can't go out there and pick some random, jabroni out of a gym, in Colorado somewhere and say, hey, you're going to fight CM Punk on pay-per-view. It just doesn't work that way. So where do you go to? Well, I was thinking, earlier I made a couple of videos where I said the thing to do is, what you do is you get a guy from a lower weight class. You get a guy like Takanori Gomi, who normally fights at 155. Some guy who's an established name, who's actually been in fights before, who's very talented, who can put up a challenge, who can definitely win. And, you put them up there getting CM Punk at his natural weight. So Punk would have like sort of the weight advantage, but the opponent would have, the background advantage, and it would make it a little bit more competitive, and you'd have a bankable name in there against CM Punk, so it was just some random no-name guy, going out there to, just put the kibosh on a guy who could be a very financially important name for the company. So I was thinking about that for a while, and then all of a sudden, this really great epiphany hit me about what the UFC could do. Now, it's going to sound really crazy, but hear me out, I think this might just work. For CM Punk to go into the octagon, no matter what, he's going to be at a disadvantage. He's never fought before. He's pretty much a newcomer. So, whoever he fights, I think, has to be someone at a certain weight disadvantage. Now, I kind of said that earlier about it being someone at 155, but maybe that's even too much. Maybe the person that CM Punk should be fighting should probably be walking around at like 145, or perhaps even 135. And we'll just have him go in there at a catchweight fight. Maybe it'll be one of those things where, Punk comes in weighing 170 pounds, opponent comes in weighing 155. Make it a catchweight. So it's a little bit more even. And from there I was thinking, what sort of opponents do we have out there who could take on CM Punk? And I'm kind of going through the obvious names, like, well, you got a couple of bantamweight fighters, you got Oliveira, you got Frankie Edgar, you got all these dudes. But then I thought, maybe CM Punk shouldn't be fighting a dude at all. Maybe CM Punk, a male athlete, complete newcomer to the sport, pro wrestling bankable name, maybe if he's going to fight in the octagon, maybe he should be fighting a female fighter. And that's when I started saying, wait a minute, this could actually work. And if you're going to put CM Punk, a guy who walks around at 185 pounds, 36, 37-year-old man, newcomer to the sport, weight advantage, the XY advantage, who would you put him up against in a cage in a pay-per-view matchup? And the answer is absolutely obvious. Who would be CM Punk's optimal first opponent in the UFC? Ronda Rousey. Why not? Because think about it. Ronda Rousey is unquestionably the best female fighter in the history of mixed martial arts. CM Punk is a dude who has never fought an MMA fight before ever in his life. What better way to kind of gauge the alleged gender gap in mixed martial arts than by having CM Punk fight Ronda Rousey? I mean, it's perfect because Ronda Rousey, as skilled as she is, she has a technical advantage for sure. She's also giving up, a huge weight discrepancy in this bout. So I think that would make it very interesting. Could an incredibly skilled female fighter like Ronda Rousey go in there using her technique alone, defeat a guy like CM Punk who has really no experience as a fighter whatsoever, but he does have the size advantage, and he does have the structural XY advantage in terms of his frame, his skeletal build, muscular tone, all that stuff. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, that's really what the UFC was all about. I mean, way back at the very first show was all about skill versus skill set. So you had guys like Royce Gracie who weighed 170 pounds taking on dudes who weighed like 300 pounds like Chemo. And I mean, it seemed like a mismatch, but really the whole point was to show that, size doesn't matter. What matters is how good you are. It's about technique. It's about leverage. It's about using your opponent's momentum against him and defeating them using, submissions and takedowns and all these sort of non-traditional modes of fighting. And when you look at the possibility of a CM Punk Ronda Rousey match, well, how could there be a fight which better personifies what the Ultimate Fighting Championship is all about? Technique. You go in there, you put Ronda Rousey, 135 pounds, CM Punk, 170 pounds, 175 pounds, and you go in there and you make it just a real simple matchup. You have skill versus size, just like you did in the old school. And of course, it's going to be it's going to make like 2 million buys. People want to see this fight. You have a dude who's a virtual technical no-name like CM Punk, but he's very bankable, taking on Ronda Rousey in an actual athletic competition. This thing would just do an insanely high pay-per-view buy rate. People who have no interest in mixed martial arts whatsoever would tune in to watch this. You would have people who are like feminists, hardcore, watching this fight. People who would never in a million years watch MMA otherwise would tune in to watch this. It would be absolutely huge. It would be not just a big crossover sports moment. It would be a gigantic moment in American history. Like watching the Battle of the Sexes, when you had Billie Jean King beating up all those guys at tennis. I mean, it's just an entertaining, great way to kind of get attention. And I think, it's actually a fair matchup because, Ronda Rousey, of course, she has a size discrepancy, but she's bad. She's talented. She can throw dudes around. She's like a judo champion. So this is actually a whole lot fairer than it appears. And it's great all the way around. If Ronda Rousey loses, well, no, so what? I mean, she lost to a man who outweighed her by like 50 pounds. There's no big loss. It's not going to taint her legacy as the greatest female fighter of all time. No big deal. And of course, it makes CM Punk a huge heel going into his next fight. People will pay a bajillion more dollars to see him get beat up by whoever because they beat up Ronda Rousey. They would love that. And I mean, come on, most fighters would not sign up to a match against Ronda Rousey, most dudes anyway, because they don't want to risk losing to a woman, and also because, I think it's kind of beneath them. I mean, they respect the sport. But CM Punk's a wrestler. I mean, his dude got paid to act and do all this stupid stuff. I mean, he would be more than willing to go in there and fight a woman. So I think structurally it makes a lot of sense. Both people would be all about it. Ronda Rousey is a huge pro wrestling fan. I mean, it would just be a really great quasi-exhibition match that people would spend easily $90 to watch. I mean, if people are going to pay to watch Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao have a non-fight, they will pay a ton more money to actually watch something like this, which is a complete and amazing spectacle. And, once again, if Ronda Rousey wins, obviously it's going to cement her legacy. I mean, she's so bad. She's been up women. She's been up pro wrestlers. She's been up men. I mean, it's great. Nobody really loses, no matter who wins that fight. And I think both people will be up to it. The only question now is, would the UFC be up to it? What sort of hurdles do you have to go through the Nevada State Athletic Commission to kind of make this happen? Is there sort of a protocol in place for male-on-female MMA matches? I don't know. But I think this could be a very, very good test case. It would be absolutely huge pop culturally, And you know what? It would be a pretty interesting matchup. I mean, name one person out there, MMA fan or not, who is not interested in what would happen if CM Punk fought Ronda Rousey. So just starting out there, we're still looking for an opponent. Ronda Rousey's going to have a layoff until December. That's probably going to have CM Punk's first fight. I would much rather see that than I would see her beat up Miesha Tate for the third time. And you know what? There's a lot of great dividends from it. Once again, nobody really loses this fight, no matter who wins, which I think is reason enough to pull the trigger. CM Punk, Ronda Rousey, bare minimum, 3 million pay-per-view buys. Just throwing it out there.